William, I'm sure that you've worked with several different land groups over the years, and you've probably had your fair share of experiences. What are some red flags for you that you start to notice whenever you're working with maybe a lead on a project or just a broker in general that, hey, this is not going the right way?
I think one of the you can kind of tell if they can't. One of my pet peeves has always been if you're going to send an ownership report, and it's almost always it's in Excel format, um, and you go to print it and it's not formatted. You have to format it, and I know that's petty, but it's a detail is that shows up that's not getting done. And so when you hit print and it's not formatted correctly, again, I know it's petty, but it's a symptom of something else down the line to me. And
Hmm.
when you send something from the field in house, it has to be right because there are other brokers out there, and you have competition, and you have you might be working for a broker, might be working for a certain landman, but there's other brokerage houses inside that same land department within that company that are working for other landmen too. And so you've got to be diligent, and these days you almost always have to have a GIS function to your brokerage, which is an added cost. And I am fully willing to pay for it because I normally can get better service and better maps out of my broker than I can from a GIS department who's pulled largely by the um, geology department. They're making maps for those folks all day, every day, and we try to squeeze some in every once in a while. So having a GIS function with your broker is really a big deal these days to me.
Yeah, I can think through got all of the jobs we've done over the years with you in particular and many other clients is they're relying on a leasing project. They're relying on our mapping product because it's current,
Yeah,
more so than they do their in-house product because, you know, leases are being generated. Leases only get mapped once they show up to your shop. But, on the broker side, they're doing the title. They know the ownership complexities. If they're properly using some sort of system or database, they're going to be able to show you where your commitments are, associate how many dollars are tied to those commitments, and show you where your leases were bought last week, as opposed to, what leases you have,
sure.
4 weeks from then, once it's been processed in-house. So that's been a big deal. And I think staying on top of that GIS component is a big deal from a technology standpoint on the broker side. I mean, I can think about how our product is and use of that stuff has evolved over the years. I want to say in the late 2000s, we developed our own GIS, product. The Calms Map Exploder,
Yeah,
I think was the
I
joke.
think I was the guinea
And
pig for that, wasn't I?
you were very much the guinea pig. We didn't tell you that at the
The
time,
few
but I
times
was
it
just
worked,
hoping
it
it
was
didn't blow
awesome.
up. Yeah, when it worked, it was great. Uh, but it was, we were trying to push technology, and we knew that there was a need for this live environment where you could pull data and information directly from your desktop in a web environment, in a GIS, map kind of layout. And, we figured it out, and it was tied to our database, and it worked when it worked. But by the time we got the bugs worked out of it over the course of 8 or 10 months, technology almost passed us up. And, now we can host these things through Esri's, Arc Online platform, and it does almost the exact same thing that we had spent years to program and develop. So, I mean, if you're not using those things, I'd say that's a red flag. If you're not able to host a map online, and you're not using a database that just tells you you're running off a spreadsheet, and you're kind of winging it. To William's point, you're sending field reports and there's not that polish. You haven't refined your process and your product because you're reacting to the job instead of knowing how you're going to run the job when you
And
get into it.
the world has changed so much. Still on this topic, I think the world has changed so much that when I first got in the business, a big lease play that a broker would go out and check, like what I would get, for instance, in the Permian, you know, would be maybe half a dozen sections because we're drilling vertical wells. And now, you're asking a broker to check an entire county, if not exactly half of it. So, let's say it's like at a large company, they're not even gonna start thinking about their acreage position until they have 50, 60,000 acres. And so for a broker to be able to map that, let you know daily how, what your commitments are, and you can print a map that they've made that has the percentages of each section, that you have to date, what's committed, and it adds, it's a significant value add, right? And so today, the way that I look at a broker, is they're an extension of our land department. They may not always know, like everybody in the courthouse and doing this work may not always know who they're working for, but I view them as an extension to our land department. And and I know Brent feels that way, and so did Bryce and Jason, who I've worked with as well. So it's really important that they feel a part of everything that's going on inside our company, although they have many clients. But I think it's important for them to feel that way.
I think that's a good thing to talk about, William. And it's the can you maybe share some of the information that's important to share with your project manager from a company's perspective? Again, kind of on the theme of being able to think proactively and help make decisions and help kind of answer some of the questions from the field without having to bother you as an in-house guy. What are some of those things that are important to be able to communicate with your team in the field from a client to PM perspective?
For the project manager,
yeah.
Well, if I understand what you're saying, so I think the project manager he and I should have a good enough relationship where you can kind of anticipate the next move, right? And not necessarily spend a lot of money on that next move, but at least be thinking about it and be prepared when it comes. And it might be 2 or 3 things, but it takes a little while for, if this happens. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll come out of a meeting and immediately call the project manager and say, hey, this is what we talked about this week. And so we need to be thinking about this might happen. And if it does, how are we going to pivot? Who are you going to use to do that? Because this is a next level deal. It might be, hey, we're looking at making a small purchase of an operator. It's a different client. It's a different set of guys, due diligence guys, and you may have to pull them from somewhere else. So it helps you manage your business if I can keep you thinking about something that's 2 or 3 steps ahead that may or may not happen, but it's a conversation that helps, that when our management says, okay, let's pull the trigger on this, we've already thought about it. We're already out of the batter's box.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought that's been one of the positive things, that really helps with success. Know what your plans are. You looking to bolt on acres through an acquisition. Okay, well, how much do I know about that area? What can I be doing ahead of time just to get ahead of things? That's all huge. Where a rig might be going, what you guys are seeing, in those meetings. I remember has always been huge to have those conversations right after your internal land meetings. Things are fresh. You know what's going on. We could be informed, and we could be thinking about resources, who we have, where we might need to add people, or frankly, where we might need to take people off.
Right.
And, it allows me to high grade the crew, or high grade the crew.
Right.
And know, listen, I got to find work for these 3 guys. So, all that stuff is huge. I think you nailed it on the kind of the communication front.